If you've ever wandered through Hanoi's old quarter and felt torn between the beauty of its history and the rush of modern life, you're not alone. The clash between old and new can feel like a battle, but what if it's actually a delicate dance?
In the 30-plus years since I first came here, I've seen the old quarter change a lot. But here's the thing, change is something the old quarter's been doing for hundreds of years. Come on, let's take a walk. We're going to visit 3 streets, a pho restaurant, and a cafe. That's all. But it's enough to understand why this neighborhood is unlike any other place in the world.
Here's a route we're going to take. Starting at the northwest corner of Hoàn Kiếm, we're going to walk up Lương Văn Can Street, named after a famous Vietnamese scholar. We'll turn left onto one of Hanoi's oldest streets, Hàng Bồ, and eat pho at a legendary restaurant. From there, we'll walk up Phùng Hưng, where there's a bit of a surprise, and we'll end in a modern hip cafe that pulls it all together. And there's no better place to start than here. This street holds the name of a man who played a pivotal role in Vietnam's fight for independence. Lương Văn Can was a Confucian scholar at the turn of the 20th century, living in a time when French colonial rule was tightening its grip on Vietnam. He was offered a post in the colonial administration, but he refused, choosing instead to fight back with education.
Basically, he took European ideas of individual freedom, rights that were being denied to the Vietnamese, and he used them to empower his students. He taught them to read and write, and to understand their rights.
In 1907, just a block from here on Hang Dao, he co-founded the Dong Kinh Nghĩa Thuc School. The school only lasted a year before the French shut it down, but in that short time, it left a profound mark on the independence movement. That legacy lives on here in Dong Kinh Nghĩa Thuc Square, where this fountain now stands. And this street, named Lương Văn Can, continues to honor a man who believed education was the key to freedom. But what is it about this street that makes it special? First, Lương Văn Can isn't one of the original Old Quarter streets. It was built in 1930. Take a look at this 1929 map. If you had wanted to go from here to here, you'd have to take a roundabout route. But by 1936, a new street appears, and that's the one we're on today.
At first glance, it seems like just another old quarter street full of shops and tourists. But let's dig deeper. There are at least 3 layers of history waiting to be uncovered.
The first layer is right on the surface, toy stores that have been family businesses for generations. They may sell cheap knockoffs now, but they've long been the go-to spot for parents shopping for toys before Children's Day and the Mid-Autumn Festival. Hay là cậu bán đồ chơi ở đây lâu chưa?
Lâu rồi ạ.
Cậu bị bao lâu?
4-5 năm rồi.
Also on the surface, take a look at this building. It once had the Ciné Tonkinois, Hanoi's second cinema, opened in 1921. The French used film as part of their mission civilisatrice, their effort to bring so-called civilization to the colonies. And for years at this location, they did this by showing detective movies.
I have an idea old Doc Crabtree will be interested in this case. Gramercy, 50485.
Let's dig a little deeper. You'll see plenty of clothing shops on this street. Tailoring and dressmaking were among the first businesses here. And if you look closely, many of these shops bear the name Chaik. That's because the first tailors here came from the village of Chaik Sa, which is now part of Hanoi. Finally, the deepest layer of history. You see that unusual architectural feature above the toy store? It's a remnant of Den Xuân Yin, a temple that was once the spiritual center of the village of Xuân Hoa. Before urbanization in the early 20th century, this area was an independent village. It's hard to imagine, but this used to be the heart of a community's spiritual life.
So there's a lot of history to this place, and you can walk down this street and not see any of it if you don't know. And this is a relatively new street. What happens when we walk down one of Hanoi's oldest streets? We're about to find out.
This is Hàng Bồ. Bo means basket. So why is this called Basket Street? The name goes back to the original 36 guild streets that were the lifeblood of the Old Quarter for centuries. This street was once lined with bamboo and rattan shops, and even under French colonial rule, it was called Rue des Paniers, or Street of Baskets. You won't find basket shops here today, but there are plenty of massage parlors. Hàng Bồ was also known for its calligraphers who created intricate scrolls using chữ nôm, the old Vietnamese writing system. These days, you'll find calligraphers around the Temple of Literature and other religious shrines, but Hàng Bồ hasn't seen them in a long time. Take a look at this building, a striking example of French colonial architecture, even though it's clearly crumbling. Around 7 families still live here, and even in this condition, this property is worth millions. The problem is, with so many families, getting everyone to agree on a sale is nearly impossible. So you have this paradox, people living in some of the city's most expensive real estate, but in very poor conditions. And you see this all over the Old Quarter. Finally, as we head west, we come to Den Nha Nội. This temple is a relic of the old village of Nha Nội, a reminder of when this area was quiet countryside before urbanization swallowed it up.
These temples and communal houses are lasting symbols of the Old Quarter's rich past. As we head west, the street name changes to Bát Đàn, wooden bowls, and we'll arrive at one of Hanoi's most legendary places to eat pho.
So why is this pho restaurant legendary? Well, it's consistently ranked among the top 5 pho spots in the city, and for good reason. It's been family-owned for more than 70 years, and that deep-rooted tradition is palpable. In Vietnamese, Gia Trien translates to family heritage, and the setup here is iconic. Pots in the front are for serving, while in the back, bones simmer for hours to create that rich broth for tomorrow. And it's not just the food that's traditional. The self-serve setup and shared tables have been a fixture for decades. So even as the clientele has evolved, the experience remains unchanged.
Xin cho mình một bát Thái Chí nhé.
Một bát 60.000.
Không có tiền này nhé. Không sao. Ở đây có nhiều tiền. Tại gia nhé. So this is about as representative an example of northern-style pho as you're going to find. Clear broth, minimal garnishes. It's all about the stock. It's like an umami bomb. The beef, the spices, which are things like star anise and ginger and black pepper and fish sauce, they are in perfect harmony with each other. This is the one pho in the city that I don't add a thing to. No lime juice, no chilies, nothing. It is perfect the way it is.
Now that we've had a taste of history, let me show you one of my favorite bits of street art, where the past begins to merge with the present. This is Phùng Hưng Street. It was once the moat that ran along the east wall of the imperial citadel, but nowadays you find a lot of good food. And we arrive at this place, the Phùng Hưng murals.
This public art project, completed in 2018, was a collaboration between Vietnamese and South Korean artists created to celebrate the city's heritage. So what stories do these murals tell? They each depict elements of Hanoi's rich past.
Like this street trolley, a system of transportation built by the French in the early 20th century that existed for decades until the 1980s. Imagine the nostalgia of someone old enough to remember this as they view the Old Quarter today.
These murals preserve memories of Hanoi's past that many young Hanoians don't even have. They remind us that in the old quarter, history and modernity are always in conversation. Speaking of modernity, let's head over to a hidden cafe that shows us the new contemporary side of the old quarter.
How does a modern cafe fit into an ancient neighborhood? Let's start with this entrance. See the cafe? Do you see it?
This is not an alley you would enter if you didn't know there was something really cool in here.
Technically, I've crossed the street and left the old quarter, but it's close enough to count. This place is a great example of how Hanoi is embracing the future. Fancy espresso machines, trained baristas, and contemporary tasteful design. Places like this are all over the city, and they generally draw a young crowd of students, digital nomads, and the like. It's quite a contrast, isn't it? Outside, centuries-old streets. Inside, a slice of modern Vietnam.
When you dig deeper, you see a story of resilience and adaptation. A neighborhood that's been balancing heritage and change for centuries. This struggle between preserving the past and embracing the future is one that many cities around the world are dealing with. And it reminds us as travelers to be thoughtful when we engage with these places. Traveling isn't just about visiting new places, it's about at least trying to understand them. I mean, isn't that the whole point?